So I believe I am live based on what I see on the screen. So if that is the case, I'll wait for my field producers, either David Calvo or Ryan Newfall, to give me a signal that they can see and hear me clearly as we begin today's program on this Saturday, October 31st, the last day in October for 2020, Halloween 2020. Very different Halloween than the ones in the past. But in any case, I welcome you to today's edition of Con Salsa on Facebook and YouTube Live. My name is Jose Maso, coming to you live from our studios, D and J. I say ours because it's D for Divina and J for yours truly, Jose. Divina, my beautiful wife who's upstairs. And today's broadcast is one in which we will share some great music and also have some great company. I expect to have with me later on, about 45 minutes or so, our guest for this afternoon. That's Luba Mason, the multi-talented singer, dancer, actress who's been on Broadway and also on television. She has a new CD out titled Triangle. We'll be talking to her about her career and also about this new musical proposal titled Triangle. Looking forward to that later on. And then tomorrow, just so you know, we will have another singer and pianist this time, Carol Welsman from Canada. She'll be joining us. She has a new CD out also titled Dance With Me, produced by our dear friend Oscar Hernandez, who will be joining us from California. So for tomorrow, it'll be Carol and Oscar. For today, it will be Luba Mason. And also for today, of course, I want to say that we're only 3 days away from voting. I'm not going to talk too much about that today. Tomorrow, I will dedicate more time to speak about the upcoming elections. Aurelio Hernández, buenas tardes, José, y saludos a tu audiencia. Gracias a ti, Aurelio, por estar conmigo aquí en el día de hoy. Y esta tarde le doy la bienvenida a cada uno de ustedes. Gracias por sintonizar en vivo Facebook y YouTube el programa Con Salsa. Por favor, dejen saber a sus amistades, su familia, etcétera. Compartan esto con ellos para que puedan ser parte de la programación del día de hoy. Tengo como invitada, lo dije en inglés, lo voy a decir ahora en español, tengo como invitada a Luba Mason, cantante, bailarina, actriz de Broadway y también de televisión. Tiene una propuesta nueva que se titula Triangle. Ella estará con nosotros como dentro de unos 45 minutos. Estaremos hablando con ella sobre su propuesta musical y obviamente su carrera como actriz y cantante. Y mañana tendré como invitada a Carol Welsman, quien es canadiense, toca piano y también canta. Y también tiene una propuesta nueva titulada Dance With Me, que es una producción de nuestro amigo Oscar Hernández, quien estará con nosotros, además de Carol Welsman, como nuestros invitados para el día de mañana. Y por aquí, rápidamente, we've got Victor Rivera, our cousin down in Florida. We are watching and listening as we are cleaning up after painting. Well, that's a good thing to do with the music in the background. David Calvo, one of my field producers down in the Cape. Our dear friend Erica and in Vermont. Okay, good place to be. So let's get to some music and get things started, okay, on this Halloween on Saturday, October 31st. Don't go away. Stay right there.
Y sigue la salsa con Salsa y José Mazo.
Bueno, mi gente, ahí escucharon uno de los clásicos del año 1972, Latin Dimensions, canción que lleva el título Draculita, ya que estamos celebrando aquí Halloween. Tremenda música, con Roberto Torres como invitado en las vocales, director musical Mike Martínez. Y de esa manera también quiero felicitar a mi mentor en cumpleaños el día de hoy. Today I want to celebrate not only that it's Halloween in a very new way of celebrating Halloween, but a very special shout out, a birthday greeting to my mentor, Alex Rodriguez, who's celebrating his birthday today. Here's Alex and myself when I worked at the governor's office, and Alex was the director of Mass Commission Against Discrimination with the great Cesar Chavez. And here's Alex in the White House with his wife Betty when I was working as the tour manager for Ruben Blades, and we performed at the White House for then President Bill Clinton and First Lady Hillary Clinton. And here is Alex with Betty and my beautiful wife Divina. So a very special happy birthday greeting to our dear friend, our mentor, my mentor, someone I admire and look up to, the great Alex Rodriguez. Así que felicidades, Alex, de parte mía y de parte Divina. Lamentamos que no podemos celebrar contigo allá, pero vamos a celebrar por Zoom, así que vamos a gozar de eso. Y también tenemos saludos por aquí. Viene Pedro Salsa, a la dama Luba Mason, caballero, le invito a bailar este son montuno. Un gran abrazo. Vaya, Pedro, gracias. También saluditos a Manuel Castrillo. Saluditos, Manuel, me alegro verte. Que todo siga bien contigo y familia. Vamos a continuar entonces. Como ya dije, Luba estará con nosotros como a las 4:45, como dentro de 30 minutos. Pero muchos de ustedes que son seguidores de nuestra música sabrán que el gran Carlos Cano Estremera falleció esta semana a la edad de 62 años. Así que vamos a rendirle un poco de homenaje a él con 3 selecciones musicales que siempre sigan en nuestra memoria, aunque no esté físicamente con nosotros, que nunca muera su legado. This next set we dedicate to the great late Carlos Cano Estremera. May he rest in peace. He may not be with us, but he will never be forgotten. Con salsa.
Hay boda, el que tenga algo que decir, que se calle la boca. La boda de ella tiene que ser la mejor, va a estar llena de cariño y también de mucho amor. La boda de ella siempre va a ser comentada, pues va a haber mucho champán y también piña colada. A la boda de ella yo no voy a poder ir, porque ella fue mi querer y me lo tiene prohibido. La boda de ella yo me la voy a perder y pude haber sido yo quien se casara con ella.
La boda de ella tiene que ser la mejor.
Necesitarás una madrina, también un padrino y un alcahuete que te cargue los anillos.
La boda de ella tiene que ser la mejor.
Si tú me acostumbraste a tener que agacharme en el balcón,
La boda de ella tiene que ser la mejor.
pasarán más de 1000 años, muchos más, y a tu carácter nunca se acostumbrará.
La boda de ella tiene que
que tú y yo fuimos, no bendecir a esa unión.
La boda bella tiene que ser la mejor.
El regalo que te tengo será sonoro, 2 pasajes para España y una entrada para la corrida de toros.
La boda bella tiene que ser la mejor.
Ya se casó, vamos al mambo y olvídalo. Ahí vienen los novios. Viene con peseta.
La boda bella tiene que ser la mejor.
Y acompáñalo a gozar, que yo me quedaré bebiendo para olvidar.
La boda bella tiene que ser la mejor.
De flores te mandaré un ramillete y a Bobby Valentín para que toque de cachete.
La boda bella tiene que ser la mejor.
Y cuando me toque a mí casarme tú sentirás como yo este gran dolor.
La boda bella tiene que ser la mejor.
Comerán, beberán y se emborracharán y luego en la boda te criticarán.
La boda bella tiene que ser la mejor.
Adiós felicidad, casi no te conocí y ese otro se la llevó.
La boda bella tiene que ser la mejor.
De colores la vida está llena, no es posible nada sin
La
color.
boda bella tiene que ser la mejor.
El traje blanco no te queda bonito, mamá píntalo un
La
poquito.
boda bella tiene que ser la mejor.
Ding dong, son las cosas del amor. La boda de ella, yo me la voy a perder. Y pude haber sido yo quien se casara con ella.
Tú me contestas el vamos con el deja ver. Luego yo te voy a contestar el deja ver con el no se puede. La mujer y la primavera son 2 cosas que se parecen. La mujer y la primavera son 2 cosas que se parecen. La mujer huele si es que está buena y la primavera cuando florece. La mujer huele si es que está buena y la primavera cuando florece. Vengan mujeres a bailar.
El tiempo que se va no vuelve.
Vengan mujeres a gozar.
El tiempo que se va no vuelve.
Porque deben de comprender que el hombre que cela es porque quiere. Porque deben de comprender que el hombre que cela es porque quiere. Tú dices que soy hombre malo, pero eso no puede ser. Tú dices que soy hombre malo, pero eso no puede ser. Hay muchas cosas buenas en el mundo, pero nada como la mujer. Y hay muchas cosas buenas en el mundo, pero nada como la mujer. Vengan mujeres a gozar.
El tiempo que se va no vuelve.
Vengan mujeres a bailar.
El tiempo que se va no vuelve.
Porque deben de comprender que el hombre que cela es porque quiere. Porque deben de comprender que el hombre que cela es porque quiere. Y la mujer es mejor que la seda y que toditas las telas del mundo. La mujer es mejor que la seda y que toditas las telas del mundo. Sirve de almohada, sirve de estela, también de cobija, yo te lo juro. sirve de almohada, sirve de tela, también de cobija, yo te lo juro. Vengan mujeres a bailar,
El tiempo que se va no vuelve.
vengan mujeres a gozar,
El tiempo que se va no vuelve.
porque deben de comprender que el hombre que cela es porque quiere, porque deben de comprender que el hombre que cela es porque quiere. Vengan mujeres, libérense ya.
El tiempo que se va no vuelve.
Si tú te vas a quedar y no lo vas a gozar,
El tiempo que se va no vuelve.
pero que ven, 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 si es que me conviene.
El tiempo que se va no vuelve.
Yo tengo una bolita que me sube y me baja, chequéame.
Que se va no
Y es que yo no soy el primero y no se espera la muerte. Yo entiendo que no estás buena, pero tú eres un resuelve. Resuélveme, resuélveme, resuélveme. Sabada pa 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 da. Sabada pa pa pa. Brr, brr, brr. Sabada pa 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 da. Sabada pa pa pa. Y es que tú quieres gozar y es que tú quieres bailar. Pero yo sé, mamá, que mulata que no te atreves, que avanza y no me dejes solo esta noche, que llegan las 12 y la noche se pierde. Pintura de primavera para mojar los pinceles. Y toma, 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 toma mi perro chum para que juegues. Si tú te pones vieja y nadie te quiere. Y en medio tiempo, medio tiempo, medio tiempo, medio tiempo, medio tiempo tú te conviertes. Y entonces te justificarás diciendo: no hay suerte, no hay suerte.
Ayude a prevenir el COVID-19 con distanciamiento social. Use el teléfono, FaceTime o mensajes en línea para comunicarse con sus amigos y familiares. Quédese en su casa el mayor tiempo posible. No se reúna en grupos. Manténgase a una distancia de 6 pies o 2 metros de las demás personas. Evite estrechar las manos o dar abrazos. Y por favor, continúe lavándose las manos con frecuencia. Visite mass.gov/COVID-19 o llame al 211. Un mensaje del Departamento de Salud Pública de Massachusetts.
Y no hay nada más duro que la salsa. Para cantar hay que estar entonado, hay que llevarla hasta el otro lado. Hay que olvidarse del sufrimiento, cantar de veras con sentimiento. ¿De qué te vale estar afinado si lo que tienes se va de lado? Si no se mueve la gente, tu son suena apagado.
Es que la cosa está buena, es una salsa bien dura. Es que la cosa está buena, es una salsa bien dura.
Cuando tú veas que hagan la clave y las mujeres muevan cintura, es que la cosa se ha puesto buena, rumba caliente con sabrosura.
Es que la cosa está buena, es
Rica,
una salsa
rica.
bien dura. Es que la cosa está buena, es una salsa bien dura.
Hay muchos que quieren ya cantar, pero no tienen el corazón que les permita el improvisar, llevando el tema de la canción. No, no, esta es la música de mi pueblo, con ella ríen, lloran y bailan.
Y no te olvides que es tradición, porque nació del fondo del alma. Y no te olvides que es tradición, porque nació del fondo del alma. La salsa está buena, está buena, está buena, está buena, está buena. Y se me vino a la mente para cantarla con sabrosura. La cosa está buena, es una salsa bien dura. Que apura, pura, 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 pura. Como mueve la cintura. Es que la cosa está buena, es una salsa bien dura. Yo sé que si la salsa no se escucha, a los salseros no les gusta. Es que la cosa está buena, es una salsa bien dura. Pata, 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 pata. Métele palo a la tumba, pa' que se forme la sandunga. Dura, 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 dura. Lleva. Dime cómo está. Es que la cosa está buena, es una salsa bien dura. Fue la salsa, es la salsa, será la salsa, yo soy la salsa, como la salsa ninguna. Es que la cosa está buena, es una salsa bien dura. Oye, como la prende la bomba, la danza y la rumba, esencia de mi cultura. Es que la cosa está buena, la salsa está dura. Suelta, suelta, Figueroa. Salsa, 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 es lo que hay. Y escucha usted la esencia del guaguancó, son de altura. Está buena, como tumba, está dura. Dale rumba, está buena. Con sandunga, está dura. Rumba, ba, de la pura. Oh, ti, 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 está dura. Con soltura, está buena. No me digan ahí, no me digan ahí, no me digan nada. Es que la salsa está dura y no escapota en pintura. Es que la cosa está buena, es una salsa bien dura. El salsero de verdad y de corazón salsa, almuerza, come y desayuna. Es que la cosa está buena, es una salsa bien dura. Pero que mira, pero salsa espesa y con sazón, para mi nena que es ricura. Es que la cosa está buena, la salsa está dura.
Bueno, mi gente, ya escucharon El Dueño del Soneo, Cano Estremera. 3 selecciones: La Boda de Ella, La Mujer y La Primavera, La Salsa Está Dura. La primera vez que Divina y yo vimos al gran Cano Estremera fue cuando salió La Boda de Ella. Estábamos de paseo en Puerto Rico, de vacaciones en San Juan, y fuimos a un lugar que ya no existe de baile, Las Lomas del Sol, que era en camino a Caguas. Bailamos al son de Bobby Valentín con Cano Estremera y también gozamos porque esa noche nos juntamos con Roberto Roena, que no estaba tocando, sino se sentó al lado de nosotros y conversamos durante toda la noche. Y luego, cuando terminó el baile, ya de tarde, o sea, ya faltando pocas horas para salir el sol, Divina y yo fuimos al condado, un vecindario en San Juan, en la calle Ashford, para conseguir algo que comer a esa hora. Terminamos de comer y cuando salimos al auto nos encontramos con ¿quién? El gran Cano Estremera, ese joven quien habíamos visto por primera vez en vivo. Y relajamos con él un ratito. Entonces luego Divina y yo fuimos a la casa nuestra, a la casa de mi padre, y no dormimos. O sea, llegamos pero nos acostamos pero no dormimos. Entonces fuimos a la playa y gozamos el día completo y nos recordamos de ese día, esa noche, como si fuera ayer. Y fue porque vimos por primera vez al gran Cano Estremera, el dueño del soneo. Que en paz descanse. So you just heard one of the greatest singers when it comes to improvising in this genre called salsa, Carlos Cano Estremera. And the last time we saw him perform, Divina and I, was on this occasion back in the 1990s. I think it was 1996. Here is Divina with Osi Guillén, the baseball player from Venezuela, and also his wife, and then Ruben Blades and Cano Estremera. And Cano was performing, and Ruben went on stage and improvised a couple of songs with Cano Estremera that night. That would have been, I think, in 1996, 1997, around then. So that was the last time we had a chance to see him. So it's been a long time since we had seen Cano Estremera. And some of the comments here, María González dice, que en paz descanse, el Cano Estremera. También por aquí, Ann, thank you. Gracias a ti, Ann, por estar con nosotros. Allá en Perú, saluditos, Angelina Medina Quiroga, nuestra amiga. Y también por acá, Erica. Erica says Alex Rodriguez. No, it's not Alex Rodriguez, the piano player. And you might be thinking about Alfredo Rodriguez, but in any case, it's Alex Rodriguez, my mentor, who is this gentleman who you're going to see right here. That's the Alex Rodriguez that I'm talking about. So in any case, it's that gentleman right there whose birthday is today. Happy birthday once again to my dear friend and mentor, Alex Rodriguez. That's his wife, Betty, and Divina, my beautiful bride, of course. And so momentarily, we'll hear some more music. The first time that I heard this particular selection that we're going to hear, I immediately fell in love with the song, but more so with the interpretation. Vaya, desde Arlington, saludos. More so with the interpretation. And the reason was because there were two things that really stood out for me. One was the vocals, and you'll see why. And the second was the arrangement. And this song is a song that's very traditional, that people who know about music, or at least have affinity for music, you don't even have to really know about it, but you've heard it. And it's called Danny Boy. And when I first heard the song, Divina and I put it on. Doris, saluditos allá. And Lawrence, qué alegría verte. Me alegro que estés bien. When we heard it, it was off of this album right here. This was the title of the album, Mundo, by Ruben Blades and Editors Ensemble from Costa Rica. Ruben Blades, of course, who's from Panama and lives in New York. And he recorded a fusion album titled World, Mundo. And off this album, he recorded this one song titled Danny Boy. I want you to pay attention to it, listen to not just only the vocals, but also listen to the arrangement of this song, and you'll see why I fell in love with it immediately. Okay? Enjoy this. Go sing.
Dedicamos esta canción a los policías, a los bomberos, a los miembros de los servicios de emergencia que dieron su vida por ayudar a otros ese 11 de septiembre, a las víctimas, a sus familias y a la inmortal ciudad de Nueva York.
It's you and I'm a spy. But come ye back when summer's in the meadow, and all the valleys hushed and white with snow. It's I'll be here in sunshine or in the shadow. Oh, Danny boy, oh, Danny boy, I love you so.
Aquí estaré en la lluvia o el verano, recordando un tiempo que no morirá. A mi compadre Claudio Fernández y a su familia, mi cariño.
There was a time when ignorance made our innocence strong. There was a time when we all thought we could do no wrong. There was a time so long ago. There was a time, but here we are in the calm before the storm. While the orchestra plays, they build barricades to help close the doors. While the musician sings, the Holocaust rings, symbols of war. In the cities we stare at the things that were there and no longer are. And in our hearts, here we are again, in the calm before the storm. There was a time when we had an idea whose time hadn't come. They kept changing its name so we could still pretend it was not really gone. We heard our screams turn into song, back into screams again. And here we are again. Here we are again in the calm before the storm. Here we are, here we are in the calm before the storm. Here we are, here we are in the calm before the storm. Here we are, here we are in the calm before the storm. Oh, here we are, here we are in the calm before the storm. Here we are, here we are in the
Well, it's a marvelous night for a moon dance with the stars up above in your eyes. A fantabulous night to make romance neath the cover of October skies. And all the leaves on the trees are falling to the sound of the breezes that blow. And I'm trying to heed every calling of your heartstrings that play soft and low. And all the night's magic seems to whisper and hush. And all the soft moonlight seems to shine in your blush.
Can I just have one more moon dance with you, my love?
Can I just make some more romance with you, my love?
Well, I wanna make love to you tonight. I can't wait till the morning has come. And now I know now the time is just right. And straight into my arms you will run. And when you come, my heart will be waiting to make sure that you're never alone. There and then all my dreams will come true, dear. There and then I will make you my own. And every time I touch you, you just tremble inside.
And I know how much you want me better. You can't hide. Hey, can I just have one more moon dance with you, my love?
Can I just make some more romance with you, my love?
In your blush,
can I just have one more moon dance with you, my love?
Can I just make some more romance with you, my love?
With him I'll go and samba through the night. And it is in the crowd I'll lose myself in sheer delight. And if the folks don't react, I'll scream and shake my tambourine. Everyone will enjoy because of me.
Como ela é que eu vou sambar até cair no chão? Como ela é que eu vou desabafar na multidão? Se ninguém se animar, eu vou quebrar meu tamborim. Mas se a turma gostar, vai ser pra mim.
I would like to hear the quick
cabrocha boa no piano da patroa, batucando, e como ela que eu vou. Quebra, quebra, quero ver uma cabrocha boa no piano da patroa. E como ela que eu vou.
Yeah, it is with you that I go.
Mas algo que eu vou.
Y como ese que yo voy.
Da-do, da-dee-da, da-dee, da-dee-de, da-dee-de, da-do-do-do.
I'll go and samba through the night with you.
Dee-do-do, da-da-dee, da-da-dee-dee-dee. Como ela é que eu vou.
Y como ese que yo voy.
And the selections by the one and only Azimuth. That's titled Last Summer in Rio. I'm hoping that my dear friend Luba, who I see very well, and I'm hoping that she can hear me. Nod yes if you can hear me. Good. All right. So you know what, ladies and gentlemen? You heard Luba Mason first with Ruben Blades singing a selection Danny Boy from the album Mundo, recorded with Editas Ensemble. Then from there, we heard The Calm Before the Storm from her album titled Mixtura. And that one in particular, there's a reason why I've chosen these songs, by the way. But that one included Flor de Tolache mariachi band, an all-women's mariachi band in New York. And then after that, you heard the late Al Jarreau. Victor Rivera, that was Al Jarreau singing with Luba. And that was Moon Dance. Not only did I share it with you because I wanted to in his memory, but also because tonight there'll be a blue moon, the second full moon in the month of October as we celebrate Halloween. And then the last song was one I just love. That's all I can say about it. I just love that song, and it's a duo between Ruben and Luba. And I posted that photo that you saw there because the first time I saw them sing that song together happened to be Ruben's birthday, and we celebrated at the Regatta Bar in Cambridge. And Luba, of course, was there performing with her band, and that is always going to be one of the most memorable performances that any of us have ever seen. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, again, I don't have those applause machines and things of that nature, so I just welcome people to come on the show, and then you can show them your love in any way you want. Let's welcome, if at this moment, the one and only Luba Mason, who is so kind to join me on this Saturday afternoon. Luba, can you hear me?
Of course I can. Loud and clear. Yes.
It's so good to see you. Thank you, first and foremost, for taking the time to join all of us here on this live broadcast of Con Salsa. It's one of those things that, because of COVID-19 and technology, we're now making use of everything we can to create a community, to socialize. We may be physically distanced from each other, but I think if we use technology in the right way, we will be able to socialize and create a community of support. And for today in particular, I had invited you, and I thank you so much, Luba, for joining us, because I was thinking, looking at the calendar, Tuesday is election day. There's so much anxiety in the air, and I listened to your music, and I said, I need to get Luba to join me because I need to set the tone for the weekend to get everybody in the right place and be in sync as far as their hearts, as far as their minds, as far as their souls, their bodies, everything as we go into this home stretch. But first and foremost, welcome to Con Salsa.
Oh, thank you so much for having me on. It's always such a pleasure, say really.
Luba, before we get into your new album, which I want to talk about, Triangle, and also about your upcoming concert on November 20th,
Yeah.
let me ask you, how are you? How has, if you don't mind, how has COVID-19 affected you personally, and how has it affected you professionally?
That's a loaded question.
I know. That's why I said, if you don't mind, I apologize
No, no,
for
not at
yeah.
all. Not at all. I've been asked this question many times. The world or the U.S. shut down March 12th, I believe it was. I was in a Broadway show. We had just opened March 5th. It's called Girl from the North Country. And we were open for a whole week, and our world was shut down along with
Mm-hmm.
all of Broadway. And March 15th, I woke up with the COVID symptoms.
Mm, mm,
So
mm,
basically, that first month, I was just dealing with just trying to get better. And thank God it was not very serious. I was not in the hospital. There were no ventilators, etc. So it was just a really nasty, bad flu,
mm-hmm,
basically.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And then unfortunately, my mom passed from COVID at the end of April. And she was one of the casualties of one of the older people, elderly, being in a nursing home.
Mm-hmm.
And at that time, they still didn't really know a whole lot. So, she was 90.
Mm,
So, she lived a nice, long life. But the hardest part, I have to say, was that I was unable to see her
mm,
and help her through the illness. I couldn't go visit her. I couldn't go to the hospital when they sent her there, etc. And so that was really tough. That was tough. But in any case, I mean, on a good note is that she went quickly.
mm-hmm.
And she didn't have to suffer that long, and she did go in her sleep.
Oh.
So, that took a little while, and so now it kind of takes you into the summer, and I've been busy with doing a lot of benefits
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
on Zoom, through different communities, whether it's music community, Broadway community, and really just kind of catching up with a lot of stuff that I need to maintain in our home, that you don't ever really have time for.
I hear you. I hear you. I hear
And
you.
then finally I made the decision, which was it was a little difficult, the pros and cons of releasing a
Mm-hmm,
brand new album
mm-hmm,
during this time.
mm-hmm.
But I decided to do it, and I'm so glad I did.
And so am I.
Really, it really gave me, thank you. It really gave me a chance to focus on something. And gosh, we all need that, right now with this irregularity. I mean, you wake up and you don't know what day it is
Mm-hmm,
anymore.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. True, true.
So yeah, I
Yeah.
released the album, so it's I've been busy with that for like the last 2 or 3 months.
Well, I appreciate you sharing that. And again, thank you for being so open as far as how this has impacted you personally. But I wanted folks to understand that COVID doesn't choose who it's going to
No,
impact, right? It's not like it wakes up in the morning and says, A,
no,
B, C, let me do D, right? It just impacts everybody in whatever
absolutely.
fashion. And but I'm thankful you're healthy. I'm thankful that you were able to at least, overcome
Me
the loss
too.
of, loss of your mother, and then that you've been concentrating and doing the things that you've been doing. And before we get to Triangle, because that's the bulk of what I want to talk about, right? I want to talk about Triangle. I want to talk about the concert, of course. But for the folks who don't know you, and before we go there, here are the people saying, here you go, bienvenida, Maestra Luba.
Oh,
There you
gracias.
got that. There's some applause from Pennsylvania. This one comes from Ecuador, right there. Bienvenida. This one's coming from Florida. Bravo,
Oh,
Luba.
beautiful,
Our
beautiful.
dear friend Mary Kent, where there's Luba, beautiful, glamorous. I
Oh,
love to photograph Luba one day. Okay, Mary, she's watching that. There you go.
I'd love that.
Mary Kent, Salsa Talks. Okay, we'll put you together. There we go. Um, and here's another person. Who is this? Says, okay, Carlos, that's from Costa Rica, saying pura vida.
Oh, thank
So,
you. Gracias.
so a lot of folks may not know a lot about you, even though their homework assignment when I announce who's going to come to the show is to find out about the invited guests. But let's talk a little bit about your background, and then I want to ask you some questions about the songs that I played, and then let's jump into Triangle. So, you're a New Yorker, born
Yes,
and raised. You're a
Astoria,
proud.
Astoria, Queens.
Oh, there you go. You're proud Bronx. The
Yeah, yeah.
Queens, the Queens. I love it.
Queens,
I love
Queens
it. I
girl.
love it.
Yeah.
So your family, you are, let me see, how many siblings do you have? You have a sister, do you?
I have an older sister. That's it.
Okay.
That's
That's it.
it.
So it's just you two. And was music part of your growing up in Astoria, Queens?
Yes, it was. Both my parents are immigrants, so
Hmm.
I'm first generation. They're from Slovakia, and music was always a part of their world, but never professionally. And coming into this new country, it really wasn't about becoming, a singer for a living.
Hmm.
They both have beautiful voices, and they sang a lot in church choirs, and I guess even it's a big part of the culture, really, of the Slovak culture. Everybody has a few drinks and you start singing, and it's just one goes with the other. And of course, like a lot of immigrant parents, I think they want their children to have more and better than they had growing
Hmm.
up,
Hmm.
and so they were, very adamant about having my sister and I take piano lessons and voice lessons and ballet, and so they really instilled the arts in us growing up. And of course, I remember every Saturday night at 7:05 p.m. there was a Slovak radio program that we all sat around, the big console TV, which was also a radio and a record player.
I remember that well. Yes.
And of course, all they did was play Slovak folk music. So I grew up in a very ethnic household with a lot of music, a lot of love of music. Yeah.
And so you said piano, dance, singing. Your sister did the same. So did she go towards singing, piano playing, or dancing? And did what came first for you?
Well, she became an opera singer, but I started out really with the piano, and I excelled at it. I was a classical pianist for
Mm,
13 years.
mm,
And fortunately, my piano teacher was also the organist, the church organist for a wonderful choir. And because my sister was a singer, he thought, "Oh, let me vocalize you and see what kind of a voice you have." When I was little, and so the last 10 minutes of my piano lessons were he would always vocalize me and we would sing. So the piano, yes, came first, but the singing took over because
hmm.
I realized, by the time I was in high school, sitting in a room for 2 to 3 hours playing piano is not a whole lot of fun. And the singing just kind of took over, and I loved to belt and play on the piano. And my sister was a classical singer, and so I started studying with her teachers from
Mm,
Juilliard and Manhattan School of Music. So
hmm.
I'm classically trained in voice as well. So yeah, that's how that progressed.
And so your sister being an influence, obviously your professor, your teacher, thank you.
Yes.
Um, so what were you listening to when you were not listening to your sister, classical, when you're not listening to the folk music at home? What were the sounds that were coming that were starting to influence you at that moment in time? And I asked that question because the last two albums that you did, Mixtura and this new one, are
Yes.
so eclectic, right? They are and we'll talk about why you use the term Mixtura. But what were you listening to then that started coming through and becoming part of your at least brain as to what songs or styles of music, etc.?
Well, with my babysitting money, um, because my parents wouldn't allow me to listen to any contemporary music, I bought myself a clock radio that I could blast in my bedroom. So pop music became a big part of my world, and I
Uh,
and I loved, Barbara Streisand and the Carpenters and just pop music in general. All the singer-songwriters, the Joni Mitchell, Carole King, James Taylor, Paul Simon. Um, but I also remember I started to become a real Sarah Vaughan fan. I don't know
mm,
where that came from, but
mm,
I fell in love with her voice, and I remember going to Carnegie Hall and seeing like one of her last concerts. Um,
wow.
and I went by myself. So that jazz just kind of started to, I guess, trickle in at that point.
Hmm.
But in the beginning, it really was more about pop, the Slovak folk music, the classical, and also I'm in high school. I started to get involved in musicals. In the every year they did a musical, and so I started to fall in love with that. And because I was trained classically, I didn't want to be an opera singer, or God forbid, I wanted to do anything my sister did. I wanted to be different. So musical theater really started to take a hold on me, because I'd also seen my first Broadway show when I was in 5th grade.
Do you remember what that show was?
Oh, yeah. It
What was
was
it?
The Magic Show.
The
Of all
Magic
things,
Show.
with Doug Henning. I don't even know if you know who he is, but he was a magician, a very well-known magician of the time. So it wasn't even a singer, but I think what I fell in love with when I went to see the show was the whole, first of all, just stepping into a building that was a theater, beautiful theater, the lights going down, being a part of the audience, then the lights going up, and there's live performers on stage. And, he was doing magic tricks, but there were assistants singing and dancing around him. It was just the whole experience that I think I really fell in love with, as well as, when I saw Sarah at Carnegie Hall. I mean, it's that magic, it's that drama of walking into any kind of a venue and the lights go down and you're part of an audience, and the lights go up and magic just starts to happen.
It's magical. That's why they're so
really
memorable.
is.
That's why it's so memorable. It doesn't matter if it's theater, if it's a play, if it's dance, whatever. It
Or
stays with you
dance
forever.
club, or a dance hall. It doesn't matter. It's really,
Yeah. I want to talk some more about that before we go into the music that we're going to hear. One of the first tracks off Triangle, but I played Danny Boy, I played Calm Before the Storm, and then I played Moon Dance. How did Danny Boy come about? How was it that your voice became part of Danny Boy?
Oh, wow. That's a funny story. I went, well, he did that album, Mundo, with Editus, which is a beautiful musical band from Costa Rica. And I'd never been to Costa Rica. And I said, Ruben, I really want to go with you when you record this. He was recording the album there. And so basically, there were some days I was going into the studio with him, and some days I was just hanging out at the hotel or walking around. He came home one day from a recording session, because he originally sang Danny Boy
Alone.
And he came home and he said, it's not sounding right. He said, I just sang Danny Boy. It's not the key. He said, it's not sounding right to me. He says, I got to do something different about it. And he looked at me and he said, it's like a light bulb went off over his head. And he said, do you think you could sing that song? And I said, well, sure. He says, do you know it? And I said, well, I know the melody, but if you give me the lyrics, I'll give it a shot. I said, but what key is it in? And he said, well, it has to be in my key, he said, his key, because the tracks were already laid down. So I said, well, let me try it. Do you have a recording of it? He had it on his tape recorder. And he played it for me. And I went, well, I started to sing it for him. And I said, it's really high. It goes up really high into like my soprano voice. I said, I don't know if you like that, but here we go. And I sang it for him. And he said, I think it sounds beautiful. Let's give it a shot. And so I went into the recording studio the next day, and I did it in one take.
Wow, it is.
And needless to say, I was excited as all can be, to be on one of Ruben's albums and singing this song.
I will tell you, your voice in that, I played it today and I got goosebumps because every time I hear it, because the way you start off, I mean, your voice is the one that basically sets the table for the whole song.
Yes,
And so
yeah.
you start off right there and you're like, you bring all of us in just with your voice, right? And then it takes us on that ride.
Yeah, and interestingly enough, that song is always sung by a tenor, a male
Mm,
tenor.
mm,
And I've never heard a female sing the song. And what happens is, because a female is singing that song, if you listen to the lyrics, it's as if the mother or the
mhm,
girlfriend or the wife or the
mhm,
sister of
mhm.
the man who went off to war
Yep.
is singing about their brother, their husband, or their
Yeah.
son.
Yeah.
And it really has a whole different take, which is
Totally.
really beautiful, and it was unexpected.
No, it's a beautiful. I'm always going to have that one. Is yes. So I want to talk about Calm Before the Storm, but there's a question about Al Jarreau. So
Oh,
Moondance,
yeah.
and Al Jarreau passed away soon thereafter, didn't he? It was like you
This was
recorded it.
his last recording before he passed.
The one with you was his last recording.
It was the last recording. I checked with his manager, and yes, it was the last recording. So I feel, wow, that was a gift
Yeah.
to
And
me.
how did that come about? That's a question here. What was the genesis on your collaboration with Al Jarreau? So how did that come about?
My producer for Mixtura was Jimmy Haslip.
Uh-huh.
And Jimmy played with Al. He went on tour with him, I think, a couple of years. So they had a relationship. And I was looking for a guest artist for my album, somebody I could do a duet with. I didn't want to always bring Ruben in to do a duet, So we were looking for someone, and Jimmy said, "What do you think of Al Jarreau?" And I said, "Oh my God, I love him. I grew up with him.
Mm-hmm.
That would be awesome." But we had to send him the track and see if he liked it, see if he wanted to do it, etc. He loved it because my musical director at the time was Felipe Fournier from
Uh-huh.
Costa Rica, and he did a beautiful flamenco arrangement of it. And Al, I believe he's half Latin, and
Mm.
he just flipped over the arrangement, loved it, and said, "I'm going to do it." So that's how that came about.
Wow.
And it was, just the right time.
Well, I chose it A in his honor and B because there's going to be a blue moon. So I
Oh,
thought, what better
perfect,
song than Moon Dance for that?
perfect.
And so the last track I played was the one where you do the duo with Ruben,
Uh,
and it's a Brazilian track.
yeah.
So it made me wonder every time when I first heard it, I said, okay, she's got eclectic taste. When did the Latin come into how did the Latin tinge come into your repertoire?
Well, it came immediately into my first album, Collage,
Mm-hmm.
and it came in because I met Ruben. I have said many times, I met Ruben when we did the Broadway show. It was Paul Simon's The Cape Man
Right. Mark
on
Anthony,
Broadway.
Nathan
Mark
Nazario, right? Yeah.
Anita Nazario and then Mark Anthony were in it as well. And it was in that show where I met Ruben, and that show was about a true story.
Mm-hmm.
Salvador Agron, he was a young Puerto Rican boy who grew up in Hell's Kitchen and was part of a gang in the 1950s. And in any case, it was an entire Latin cast. I played the mother of one of the white boys that he had killed.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm in this cast, this gringa, and I remember even, listening and hearing Ruben for the first time sing in rehearsal. And I only knew Ruben as an actor.
Hmm.
The entire cast knew who Ruben was. I didn't. I was a fan as an actor. And he opens his mouth and starts singing, and I'm thinking, he's a pretty good singer for an actor, a day, and a little, of course I eventually found out, but Ruben and I, that's where we met, and we began to hang out a lot. And of course we would sit and listen to music. That's what we did a lot of.
Mm-hmm.
We would open up a bottle of wine, and he turned me on to Latin music. That show just opened. I was in an entire Latin cast. The Latin culture was surrounding me. Ruben and I started to become very close, and the music was flowing, out of him and teaching me. And he's the one who turned me on to Latin music and the rhythms. And Brazilian music. Wow, when I
Mm-hmm.
started playing
Mm-hmm.
Brazilian music, I flipped. So that's where that really started to come in. And I have to say, every one of my albums, there's something Latin on there somewhere. Um,
Well, well, in Triangle, there's another Brazilian tinge, by all means.
yes,
And again, we use the word eclectic. You use the word mixtura.
yes.
Describe for us what you mean by mixtura.
Mixtura is a blend of different musical currents.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I trademarked it. And really, the bottom dollar of the concept is it's trying to deviate away from the fact that an album or a concert that you go to see has to fall under one umbrella of one genre. Like I'm going to a rock concert, I'm going to a pop concert, I'm going to a salsa concert. It's really about giving the artist the freedom to just record, perform music,
Mm-hmm.
any genre you want, and to even incorporate different genres, even possibly within a song itself. Like for example, the pop tune Moondance,
Mm-hmm.
we had a flamenco arrangement, and just those kind of subtleties. It's called mixtura, and I have to say it was very difficult selling that album because it had so many genres attached to it.
And
But that was the idea of mixtura. And because I had so many different musical influences.
and so when I heard Triangle, I heard a sequencing, right? And that was it was a segue. To me, it was a segue from mixtura to Triangle,
Oh, yes,
as far as the eclectic
absolutely.
selections of the music you picked. So
Yeah, I
talk about
carried
this.
that over. Yeah,
Yeah.
I carried that over into the Triangle album, the mixtura concept, yes.
But there was one major difference that I noticed. It was very simplistic in the sense it's your voice. It's Joe Locke on the vibes, and then you've got James Geeson on bass,
Yeah, James
and
is on
and
bass.
and that's it. And I go, okay, where's I'm shaking the CD, see what else is that, and then there's a little bit of percussion in a few songs. So how do we go from that concept that you had in your previous three albums, in particular Mixtura, where you brought all these different sounds, the different
Oh, yeah.
instruments, etc., to this very simplistic, raw. I shouldn't use the word raw, but very,
Minimalistic.
minimalistic. That's the word I was looking.
It's a
Thank you.
very minimalistic approach to
Thank you.
music.
That's the right word I was looking for. So how do we go to that?
Well, Prince, the pop performer Prince, had died,
Mm-hmm.
and my collaborator for Crazy Love, the Brazilian album, was, and I co-wrote music with him, Renato Neto, who lives in Brazil. He was a collaborator and keyboardist for Prince. So I called up Renato to see how he was doing, how he felt, and we started talking about music. And he said, so what are you working on now? I said, well, I just had a 6-piece band, and I said, it's really hard getting gigs, getting paid what I need to get paid to pay these guys. I said, it's a hole in my pocket. And he says, well, why don't you downsize? Why don't you downsize to a trio? And I said, oh, everybody does piano, bass, and drums. Everybody does that. I don't want to do that. That's. He says, well, and I said, I have a vibraphone in my band now. And I said, I love the sound. I want to keep that. And he says, well, why don't you try vibraphone and bass?
Huh.
And there was silence because I was trying to hear it in my head, what that would sound like, because I never heard of it before. And I said, okay, well, let me think about that, and I'll get back to you. So as soon as I hung up, the first thing I did was Google, whether there was any recordings out there of vibraphone and bass, and there weren't that I could find.
Mm-hmm.
I still don't know, but so far, reviews have come in, etc. I've spoken to a lot of, heavy-handed jazz guys, and nobody has mentioned a voice, vibraphone, and bass lineup yet. And so what I did is I put my vibraphonist and a bass player together. We got a repertoire together, an eclectic mixtura repertoire, because I really wanted to challenge this lineup. I wanted to see if this lineup could handle, pop tunes, folk tunes, a heavy metal tune, a Spanish bolero, a show tune. I wanted to see if it worked. And we did. We tried it out in several small jazz clubs in New York, and people were responding unusually. They were like, jaws were kind of dropping, like, oh. Like, and the reactions were like, I have never listened to just the bass before, because there were a couple songs that I did just voice and bass, and they were like, it's great, it's beautiful, I could hear everybody. It's because we're so exposed and there's so little up there, you really get a chance to hear everybody. And at the same time, you better be good. Because there's no room for mistake.
True.
You have nobody to hide behind. You don't have a drummer, to hide behind. The bass didn't, or myself, or, you don't have the 6-piece band, So anyway, that's how the concept came about. And because of the reactions were so positive, and because I saw that it had never been done before, I went, this is a project that needs to be recorded. And so I got myself a couple of real thoroughbreds, So
let's talk about Joe. Let's talk about Joe, and let's talk about James.
Oh, Joe is one of the top vibraphonists in the country. He's toured with Grover Washington Jr. and Diane Reeves. James Genus, he's the bass player for the Saturday Night Live band. As well as he's toured extensively with Herbie Hancock and Chick Corea and many others. I mean, these guys are just at the top of their game. And there are like 2 or 3 songs where I've added a percussionist. And I want to mention Samuel Torres.
Right.
So he came on just to give a little
flavor.
A little more flavor.
A little flavor. So here's one of the tracks, again, with a Brazilian tinge, Waters of March.
A stick, a stone, it's the end of the road. It's the rest of a stump, it's a little alone. It's a sliver of glass, it is life, it is sun, it is night, it is death. It's a trap, it's a gun. The oak when it blooms, a fox in the brush. The night in the wood, the song of a thrush. The wood of the wind, a cliff, a fall, a scratch, a lump. It's nothing at all, it's the wind blowing free. It's the end of a slope, it's a beam, it's a void, it's a hunch, it's a hope. And the riverbank talks of the waters of March. It's the end of all strain, it's a joy in your heart. The foot, the ground, the flesh and the bone, the beat of a road.
So I hear that, and it is exactly the way you describe it, right? You're hearing that bass is like right there, and Joe, of course, laying the melody, but your voice is like carrying the whole tune at that level where you're just like, welcome, come on in. One of the Victor Rivera says heavenly. Heavenly. That's a word to use to review that song, heavenly. So
and I do want to mention that the co-producer of this album is Renato Neto, who I did Crazy Love with.
All right.
From Brazil. So, and that's his arrangement, by the way.
Full circle. I love it. And so when you recorded this, did you record it live? How was the recording? How did you go about doing this particular record?
Interestingly enough, I had a recording with us just playing the song in a recording studio where we're each in our own little booth. And then I had recordings of us performing live at a venue, like at the Iridium in New York. And Renato was in Brazil, and I'm sending him the songs that I want to do for this album. And he's just like, this song, which we recorded in the studio, he said, sounds very different. The energy sounds very different from this song, which we did live. And I said, oh, well, one is in the studio and one is live. And he goes, aha. So he says, I think it's very important we record this album live in the studio in front of a live audience. So we chose the Power Station Studio, the legendary Power Station Studio, where all the greatest people have recorded and the biggest hits have been recorded. And I invited like a small audience of about 50, 60 people. And we recorded live. And I'll tell you, it makes such a difference. As a performer, when you're playing live, there's an energy that you just you can't explain. It just naturally comes with the adrenaline and everything else, and you're performing in front of people. It gave that extra added something to the recording that when we had recordings just in the studio in our solitary booths, it was almost dead sounding, whereas this came alive. So yes, it's a live recording.
So Renato picked up on that quick. He said, there's something missing. Here's where we go. Let's go live. Well,
yeah, I'll tell you. And if I didn't have somebody out of the country, I don't know if we would have made that. I don't know. We would have made that distinction.
Yeah. Listen to Joe Locke.
And the riverbank tops of the waters of March. It's the end of all stream. It's the joy in your heart. Bum, 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 bum.
There it is, live. Agua de Marzo. Aquí Eduardo Valenzuela says, Agua de Marzo, lindo. Bonito, bonito. Beautiful, beautiful. And so in picking out the songs, how did this come about? How did you decide which were going to be the tracks that you wanted to experiment with in this minimalist concept that you had that still captured mixtura?
I wanted to have a combination of songs. Not only were they mixtura eclectic, but some that were very well known and maybe some that were not as well known. What was important was to have some of those well-known songs so people could actually compare, knowing like Ticket to Ride by the Beatles. Everybody knows that song. And then they hear my version. And they can hear the difference, and they can judge for themselves whether they like it better or not, or it's just different, So I wanted, again, a little bit of everything on there. I have a Slovak folk song. I have a Spanish bolero. I have 2 pop songs. I have 2 straight-ahead classic standard jazz tunes. Thelonious Monk's In Walk Bud and Say It. And then I have a show tune. And then I was talking to, this was my previous musical director, and I said, I want something so out there, something unexpected. I said, I want like a real rock and roll kind of a song. Because, you think of rock and roll, and drums and guitar and, and I said like something really roaring. And I said like heavy metal. And he said System of a Down. And I was not, so I said, okay, and I listened to a few of their albums and I found Toxicity. And I went, wow, let me see if we can make this work with just a vibraphone and a bass. And, people flip over that song, I have to say. Actually, people are kind of marveled at all of them.
Well, I think one of the things I've learned from you to appreciate as I've listened to the music that you've left us as far as recordings is the confidence you have in the art that you share with us, right? You're saying, look, here's my art.
Yeah.
I'm giving you the best of my art, and it's up to you to A, take a chance on it, and B, accept it, maybe not accept it, whatever, but at least I'm going to be honest to myself. This is me thinking you, right? Where I'm going to give it to you. I'm not going to sugarcoat it. I'm not going to be thinking, okay, I've got to do a commercial album because that's the only thing that they're going to play, whatever commercial may mean, right? You're saying I'm going to pick things that I enjoy taking a chance on and hoping that you'll go on the ride with me. And so that is part of what this album. When I heard it, when I first heard it, I said she really jumped into the deep end of the pool on this one because it's it's just like taking a real step that few artists would do because few artists want to take the chance of what the feedback's going to get from people, right? So they're so like, well, maybe not. Well, do you want to do toxicity? I don't know. Heavy metal. Nah, let's skip it. Let's get something. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
you did the opposite. You did a 180. You said, yeah, let's go. Am I reading this wrong, or am I on at
No,
least in the
you
right?
are so on the nose, Jose. You really are. And I have to say, when I presented this to Ruben, he was kind of like, I said, I'm going to try just voice, vibraphone, and bass. And he went, He didn't say anything. He didn't say a word like, yeah, go for it, or no, don't do it. He just went, okay. That's all he said. And then we recorded it. And he wasn't even here. I think he was doing a movie or he was on tour or somewhere. And when I played him the recording, again, he was just like, he listened to it and he didn't necessarily offhand first gush about it. His main concern was, I gotta hand it to you. You've got balls. He says it sounds beautiful, but I don't know, how people are going to react to this. I said, I don't either. Other than the little bit we tried it out and audience people liked it. But you really, I just wasn't sure what the reaction was going to be like from reviewers, etc. And so far, knock on wood, I've been getting raves. I really have. People,
it's well deserved. And let me come at you from a different perspective, right? Unlike you, I wasn't born in the United States. I was born in Puerto Rico. I came to the United States when I was 20. But radio, and you spoke about the clock radio. The transistor radio was my means to be able to hear the music I wanted to hear because I had a transistor radio I could hear in my bedroom. But radio at the time I was growing up in the 1950s, 60s was eclectic in many ways, right? That I could hear a broad variety of genres being played. And it didn't matter that I was living in Puerto Rico. I could hear I could hear Frank Sinatra, I could hear Sammy Davis, I could hear Count Basie, I could hear Duke Ellington, I could hear Ella Fitzgerald, I could hear all these great artists. At the same time, I was hearing trios from Puerto Rico and from Mexico. I was listening to, it was all these things were being popped in your ear. So you could hear all these things while you were listening to radio. And then it started becoming much more, geofence, right? Where, okay, this is the only music I'm going to play. This is the only music you're going to play. This is the only music.
Right, right.
But that palate, that appetite, that taste for all these things was because there was a time in which I think the communicators at least were much more open to, whatever was coming in. Let's try this. Let's play it. Let's share it with people. And I think when I heard Triangle, and prior to that, when I heard Mixtura, I said, this is like listening to radio when I was growing up. It's like listening to radio because I was listening to all these different things coming at me in a different way, right?
Right.
We're going to hear Inolvidable soon. And this is what this reminds me of. It reminds me of that moment in time when we used to have the opportunity to at least be exposed to a broader palette of our music.
Nice.
Right? And so
I know today you listen to the radio and everything sounds the same.
Yeah.
It's hard and it's overproduced and there's just it's like so anyway I'm with you.
Okay, well that's good. Here from Italy, this says another great job, ottimo trabajo, great Luba Mason. Erica says yes, I missed eclectic radio that functioned through the 80s. Mary Ken, our dear friend, I love the result of this minimalist concept. I'm glad you do. And by the way, wait a minute. Luba, your experience as Broadway actor shines through. It is a great collection. I can't wait to hear it and take your musical trip. All right. Listen to this one here. Luba has a polyfunctional voice. That's a nice way to describe it.
Yeah.
And so we are at a stage now where under normal circumstances, and we don't know what the new normal is going to be in the next 2, 3, 4, 5 years. But we're at a stage where what normally would have been I have an album, I release it, gets airplay or gets reviewed, and then I do a tour promoting the album, et cetera, et cetera. That's not the reality today.
No.
But you and I spoke in the beginning about how we use technology to create community. So on November 20th,
Right.
something special is going to happen. And I want people to pay attention when we get to that part of the conversation because you need to be part of this. So why don't you share it with the audience?
Because we cannot tour, because venues are not available or open. Luckily, I filmed this live recording in front of a live audience at the power station with the intention of selling this DVD with the CD. That was the intention. Little did I know COVID was going to happen. And because I had recorded this in 2018.
Mm-hmm.
And so now I have this wonderful live video of the recording. And my team and I came up with the idea, why don't we stream this? Why don't we have the premiere of a concert that I normally would have in a venue? Why don't we have it online somewhere where people can pay a small stipend, not a big deal, but they can see the concert live? And so that's happening on November 20th. It will be streamed on BroadwayWorld.com.
Okay.
I don't have the exact link right now. We're getting it on Monday, but you can go to my website, LubaMason.com, where I'll have the updates on where you can hook into this link and sign up for my newsletter as well. I'll have the information in the newsletter. So we'll have it as early as next week. LubaMason.com. Perfect.
LubaMason.com. There you go. And we'll get the information. Connect with Luba so that way you're part of this. Again, we are in a new reality. How we use technology to create community is important. And it's another way, I think, for us. When I said that I sort of like timed your, inviting you, is because if anything I've learned during the last 8 months is that with everything that we're going through as a community, music and anything that has to do with the arts is what I believe has been the light in that darkness.
Oh, absolutely.
And
it's so important.
And so any opportunity, the other day I watched Eddie Palmieri perform. Again, it was similar. He did a streaming of a performance. And to see the performers was a joy because they were enjoying it so much, right? They were together. They were playing finally, even though they may have had an audience of 50 people, it didn't matter. They were sounding like if they had an audience of 30,000 people, that's the energy that they were giving, right? Because they were doing what they love to do.
Yes.
And so I think the combination, of getting the album, the CD, and having the opportunity to see you perform is the type of thing that I think for all of us who are looking for light every single day are the types of opportunities that I support, and I hope others out there who are listening and watching will do as well. Before we hear this next track, and I want to talk about technology for a second, but let me go back. So
can I just mention
go ahead. Sure,
one thing? And I just want to mention that after this concert, after the streaming, I will be doing a live Q&A afterwards on YouTube. So
great.
If people, have questions or they want to, talk to me or anything, that's also included in the whole evening. Whole event.
Excellent. Yeah. So we watch you perform, and then we have an opportunity to. Yeah. Nice. I like that. That's a nice concept. I like. I want to go back to one of the tracks, "Calm Before the Storm." That was a song that Ruben had recorded.
Yes.
He wrote it, and with Lou Reed. Yeah. And you recorded it. And again, mixtura, being, you're thinking of how you wanted to do that and how you bring the, mariachi band, et cetera, et cetera. But again, all of this was not by coincidence. I picked that song because elections are Tuesday.
Yep.
And anxiety is everywhere. And it's not just here in the United States. I think around the world, people are feeling anxiety to whatever happens in the United States because whatever happens in the United States is going to impact them one way or another. So when you recorded that song, let's talk about your mind at that moment. And now, as you hear the song on this day, October 31st, 2020, share with us what's up here and what's here.
Oh, well, that song is timeless. I believe it was written in 1983 by Ruben and Lou. And the lyrics, they were written then, but they could apply to what's going on today. The fear that everyone is experiencing in the world today, the racial inequality, and that's one of the reasons why I recorded with the all female mariachi band. It was my way of giving a symbolic nod to the integration of working together, two different cultures, and the American and the Mexicans. It's it's unity. It's really about unity, that we're going to get through this. We as a country will get through this. That's the only way, I think. So yeah, Calm Before the Storm is it's just timeless. The message of it really is.
Well, it's a message that also, I think, prepares us mentally to at least be strong. We can't get weak at any moment. We have to do what we have to do as far as making sure that justice is served, and that we as citizens collaborate with each other, so that at this moment in time where we're being asked to have courage and step forward, we don't shy into the background and say, "Oh, it's not my fight; it's somebody else's fight," etc. In this album, you also took a leap of faith, because even though I've been hearing you sing, some beautiful Brazilian songs, you come out and you sing "Inolvidable,"
a classic.
Hello.
And interestingly enough, I don't know if you're familiar with Michael Bourne from WGBO, a jazz station here in New York. He said, I have not heard, he says, I've been waiting for somebody to re-record that song for such a long time. And again, I wanted a classic bolero, is because I knew boleros are something that would really suit well with my voice. And so I asked Felipe, I said, what's a real great classic bolero that everybody knows? And he says, Inolvidable. And he sent me a recording that Cheo did. So, and I went, oh, okay, got to do it. Beautiful melody, beautiful, and the lyrics too.
When Divina heard it, she started singing right along with you. And she said, thank you for picking that one. I said, I didn't pick it. She did. That's the one in her recording. It is beautiful. So we're going to hear you momentarily sing Inolvidable. And para aquellos que estén viendo el show, hemos hablado en inglés. Luba Mason, quien es mi invitada para el día de hoy, que tiene una propuesta nueva titulada Triangle. Y también estará en concierto el día 20 de noviembre. Vayan a su página, que es lubamason.com, para que tengan información sobre el concierto el día 20 de noviembre, donde además del concierto, después del concierto habrá una charla de preguntas y respuestas, donde ella estará participando. Yes, go ahead.
I also thought of another thing. It will be at 9 p.m., the concert, but when you buy a ticket, it will be good for 7 days. Okay. Because if somebody in Europe or Japan or somewhere wants to see the concert, you have 7 days where you can get it on demand, so to speak.
There you go. Okay, that's good. So Mary Kent, who's a photographer, says, I love the CD album cover Mixtura. You're sitting with your legs crossed, forming the X in Mixtura. I'm seeing it on the top. So here, let me show you again the album. Where do I have it?
Yeah.
The Mixtura album. I've got it right here. There you go. There you go. Mary Kent, there you are. That's the one. Yeah. That forms the X right there in Mixtura. Good observation, Mary. Yeah, one of my favorite albums, by the way. And so, in singing something like Inolvidable, where you purposely said, I want a bolero, I want something where I could use my voice to sing. Talk to us again about, here you are, somebody who's classically trained, who obviously has performed on Broadway, which encompasses a different way of singing, I believe, right?
Yeah.
It's not, and again, you do it in an ambience where you don't have the strings coming in the beginning. You don't have that big buildup of, it's just minimal, right? It's your voice, Joe, James, when you went there in front of this audience, bingo, just like that, as if you were sipping a cup of coffee or something like that. In other words,
Oh, you mean when
was
I sang it
yeah, when
in
you
front
say
of the audience?
yeah, yeah,
How did it feel, or
yeah.
what's
I
the
mean, yeah,
question?
because this is not, it's not the usual. Again, you're
Oh,
experimenting, but this is one where okay, you're singing in Spanish, olvidable.
yes, yeah.
So you're again you're on a trapeze up there. You're up there.
Well, first of all, I had to make sure that my Spanish was good.
Okay.
And I remember I went over it quite a lot with my Spanish teacher at the time. Um, you know, it's you're even though you're singing in a different language, I think you know people are going to get the message. They're going to
Mm,
feel it. They're going to
mm,
get it.
mm,
I don't know. I think so. I think, and I do have a lot of Latin fans.
mm-hmm,
So it's also my way of tipping my hat to my fan base as well. I always like to include. I think almost every album I've sung something in Spanish on one
uh-huh,
of my albums
uh-huh, uh-huh.
for my Latin fans, and I think that's really important. I'm trying to also keep people who are fans of mine inclusive.
Uh-huh.
And I think also when you're singing a song like this with such a minimal lineup, people do listen to the lyrics
Mm-hmm.
also. They are
Mm-hmm.
exposed.
Mm-hmm.
So if you do know Spanish, it really brings that to light, and it
Mm-hmm.
puts the lyrics on display as well.
Mm-hmm.
So, but people, even if they didn't understand what I was singing, they just loved it because the song itself is a classic. And just again, I said the melody is just beautiful. It's just it swells in your heart. It really does.
This
Beautiful.
this day and age, you spoke about all those influences when you were younger, and especially Sarah Vaughan, etc. Are there artists that you hear now that you say, that's interesting how she or he's using their voice? Are there any at this moment in time that you saw like say, whoa, wait a minute, who was that?
Oh gosh, now I'm not sure about, you know, oddly enough, I was just listening a little bit to Miley Cyrus of all people.
Mm-hmm.
She's got a great voice, and it's she doesn't always uh, present herself in the best light, but I think she's really talented. There was somebody like when Sade came along.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I thought she had a beautiful, interesting sound. Joni Mitchell was a big influence on me in the day, and again, she had that like high, very light soprano-y tone, and then she could go down into like a real deep alto raspiness. Sarah Vaughan had that too. She had those low notes that were just stunning.
Mm-hmm.
Today, wow, it's really unusual. It's very rare that voices are on display. It's more of like you don't necessarily have to have the greatest voice to be a big pop star or any kind of a singer. It's sometimes it just takes like I don't know, their approach to a melody or a song. And I have to say, as I said before, when I listen to and I really don't listen to radio that much,
Mm-hmm.
pop radio, because the voices are just so produced and they all sound like Mickey Mouse. They're just like, they're just in that high, horrible place. It's very unusual to find Adele had a great, she's got a great soulful sound. She's really terrific. It's hard for me to find people that I've just gotten pickier as I've gotten older.
No, that happens.
Or more
That
sophisticated.
happens.
It's-
Esperanza Spalding, who studied here at Berkeley, right? Esperanza, when we first came across Esperanza as a young 18-year-old at Berkeley, we saw her as a phenomenon playing bass.
Yeah.
The last thing we expected was that she had this incredible voice to
Right.
go along with her bass playing, right? And
And that hair.
yeah, and the hair,
That hair was
but
great. That was like an instrument in itself.
but the fact that that was like a fresh voice, right? Because you said,
Yeah.
"Wow,"
Yeah. Yeah.
again, looking for those fresh voices. And many of us, I think, we've been spoiled because I think we always look for the great. I shouldn't say we're always looking for, but we're always open to hear voices that really distinguish themselves
Absolutely.
from the monotony of a lot of voices that are so like canned in. And I always wonder when artists like yourself perform, etc. If you get the chance, and one of the things I think that occurs too is that there used to be, I think, more opportunity for what we call in Spanish un taller, which I guess would be workshop, where there were more opportunities for you as an artist to be able to see contemporaries or other artists perform in intimate settings like clubs and things of that nature, whereas that's become smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller as far as those kinds of opportunities.
Yeah, very much so.
We're missing that.
Yeah,
We're missing
we are. We are. I think the clubs aren't really even making as much money
that.
anymore.
Mhm.
It's really a dying breed. The small jazz clubs. They're close, and with COVID's not helping either.
No, not at all. Not at all. And as the music gets ready to come in, somebody said Carly Simon as a voice. There you go. How about Carly
yes.
Simon? Yeah, Carly
Yeah.
Simon. That's another great voice.
Yeah.
When you were on Broadway this last play, was it the last one where you played drums?
Yeah, it's the last one, Girl from the North Country. I
And
had to learn how to play the drums.
That's what I was going to say. So that's not like it's not piped in. That's you playing the traps and playing the bass, playing.
Yeah.
But
I'm the drummer.
But you sing in that.
I'm the drummer in the band, and I have a solo spot where I just sing and play one of Bob Dylan's songs, "Sweetheart Like You," and that's doing this. You don't. People don't know a whole lot of drummers who sing, and those that do sing, it's not just I love you, I love you, I love you. This is Bob Dylan lyrics here. You got to make some sense of them.
Oh my
So
God.
I remember from my audition, at the very end after I sang and I read the scenes, the director said, well, this character, we would like her to play the drums. Luba, do you play any instruments? Do you play the drum? I said, well, I play piano, guitar. Well, do you think that you could handle playing the drums? And I said, yeah, I think so. And I walked out of there and I was like, I was about to say, you say anything in the audition room because you want the job,
Yeah.
And I thought about it. I went, oh my God, if I get this part, I have to learn how to play the drums.
And so
it scared the crap out of me.
Who was the person that taught you to play drums?
His name is Mike Dobson. He lives in Brooklyn. I had 2 lessons before we started rehearsals. And our second rehearsal, get this, we were in rehearsal and 5 o'clock came, the director said, okay, I think we've done a lot today. Okay, all of you guys, everybody can go except for Luba. Luba, we're going to jam. I've had 2 drum lessons. So everybody leaves and our director who plays the guitar pulls his guitar on, tells me to go on the drums. The musical director pulls the piano over. The arranger, Simon, sits right at the base of my stool, and they start telling me to play. We start jamming. They're like, okay, play 8th notes. Okay, now hit the snare.
Oh my
now,
God.
do the cymbal with the snare and do 8th notes over here and do 16ths over, and hit that bass. And I'm like, thank God I wore a very loose cotton shirt that day because I was sweating profusely.
Oh my
I
God.
thought, oh my God, I'm going to get fired. They're going to think I can't play that well. And they just loved what I did. I mean,
Well, congratulations on that. Congratulations. Here's your voice, Inolvidable.
Con un nuevo amor he besado otras bocas buscando nuevas ansiedades. y otros brazos extraños me estrechan, llenos de emoción, pero solo consiguen hacerme recordar los tuyos que inolvidablemente vivirán en mí. He besado otras bocas buscando nuevas ansiedades y otros brazos extraños me estrechan, llenos de emoción, pero solo consiguen hacerme recordar los tuyos que inolvidablemente vivirán en mí.
I love that. I love that. I love it. James. Ooh.
Vivirán en mí.
Beautiful. That's another one of those. I've got goosebumps right here. So that was a beautiful rendition. Yeah. Orlandito Hernandez says, just relax and listen. Yes.
Gosh, I haven't heard these in such a long time. You're selling the album. I'm selling it now. I haven't listened to it in a long time.
But, as I heard that again, the combination of vibes and bass, but in particular, James on bass.
Oh,
this guy's a monster. He's crazy monster. I mean, this is...
that solo, he just wrapped that bass around that melody just so beautifully. It was so... That's all I could. It was like a visual. He was just wrapping the sound around that solo. It was beautiful.
Love it. So the album is out. Where do these great listeners who are right now, Orlandito, Marco, Eduardo, Aurelio, Victor, Joe, where do they get the album? Is this an Amazon number, or do I go to Luba?
Oh, anywhere
Okay,
you anywhere you download your music, that's where it is. It's on all of the digital downloads. And if you want a CD, you can go to my website and you can get it there.
There you go. The
LubaMason.com again.
I love it. I love it. Well, this is great stuff. So we're going to hear, if we have time, I don't know, I'm going overtime with you, and I hope you don't mind, because you might have another gig. But as we look at this, Bach, Stevie Wonder, and Janelle Monáe. Ticket to Ride, which we're going to listen to. Cherries, In Walk Bud, which I hopefully will get to. Toxicity, Say It, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. So there's definitely that eclectic, let me grab it together. Have you written anything? Is there anything that says Luba Mason as the composer?
No, not on this album. My last one I did, but this one I did not, and I'm overdue. I believe my next album is, I got to write some more music here. And now that we've got some time, I think that'll be my next project.
That would be nice. I think, if your voice were included, not your voice meaning just your voice, but meaning, your emotional capital that you've got that you could share, I think would be that'd be a treat. That would be a nice treat for all of us. I was thinking about you when I was thinking about Broadway, and here you are. You know, you get the gig and you start, and then all of a sudden, what was it, a week, or whatever it was later,
One, one
it
week.
was it was like, oh, sorry, it's gone. Um, how do you, as an artist, at this moment, again, you're occupied with this project, which is one way of you using your time in a very disciplined way. It's obviously your art, it's your passion, it's your livelihood at the same time. But as you hear from your friends who are in this world of entertainment, right? Ruben is fortunate, he's filming again. I believe he's in Texas filming.
Right.
But when you hear your other friends who are not occupied, I mean, they're not doing anything whatsoever, not even in their own home, they're not doing anything. Reflect on that for a moment, please.
Um, wow. I can't really speak for them, but we do have like a text thread of our cast from the Broadway show, and so many of them are just responding and saying they're bored. You know, they can't wait till we get back on Broadway, et cetera, et cetera. And you know, I can't just sit home and do nothing. I mean, yes, I was fortunate to have this project in my back pocket and ready to go. But, you know, I'm thinking to myself, you know, after the holidays, what's my next goal here? What do I want to do? And I don't know, I guess as an artist, you know, challenge yourself. You got to keep learning. You got to keep at it. You got to keep things fresh. And I haven't played the piano in a really long time. And I thought, you know what? I think it's time to hit the piano again, get that under my belt again. And as you just suggested, I want to start writing music again. So that's my next goal in the new year. You know, to start that in January, get that going again, get those juices flowing. And, you know, there's some auditions, acting auditions that are coming in that I'm doing. And, you know, people ask me every week or so to post something on a Zoom or can you sing at this virtual concert? And, you know, and I do them, and that's all great. But I need something creative of myself to keep those juices going. As an artist, you really need to. You die.
Yeah, that's who you are. So we've got some comments here. American, bello acento el tuyo, Luba, excelente, y me encanta inolvidablemente cantado en tu voz. There you go. That's a great review right there. Victor needs to go, but thanks for sharing your story. I wish you much more success. Don Jose, thanks for another great show.
Thank you, Victor.
David Romero, of her compositions, which one is the most personal, and which CD will we find it? Okay.
They're all personal. Some are happy, some are sad. I don't know. I would say maybe like my first song that I ever wrote, and it's on Crazy Love. It's called A Summer Night. It's the first song I ever wrote. And that song is just very special to me. It's not what you think it is. It sounds, you know, it's the lyrics are pretty deep. They're pretty deep.
There you go, David. You got it. And then Kathy says, Luby, you have a beautiful voice. What a privilege that you were able to record with Aljo. Yes, these songs are wonderful. Okay, Kathy, you know, the CD, the new one right there. For those of you who just joined us, look, here's her collection. There's Collage, that's still available. Crazy Love, which she just mentioned. Mixtura, which is her previous CD. And, of course, the new one that just came out and is the one that I suggest you give a listen to is titled Triangle. Which, so the title Triangle, one assumes is because it's a trio, but, right? Simply Triangle.
That's really, instead of saying Luba Mason's trio, it's Triangle because it's a little special and it's a little different, really.
Yeah, Triangle. So you mentioned Ticket to Ride. And, of course, I saw the title and immediately I was thinking, okay, there's McCartney and Lennon and she's got a ticket to ride. And I said, okay, that's going to be the one song that's going to have a little bit of nothing like that at all. At all. So that arrangement came via whom?
Joe Locke.
Really?
Yep. Yeah, because I had originally sung "Here Comes the Sun."
Okay.
I wanted to do a Beatles tune, and I liked it, but I just kind of went, "It's not hitting me right. This is not the right one." And I remember saying this to Joe. We were having some conversations before we got into rehearsal, and he came up with this. And I heard the arrangement, and I went, "Ooh, I could do something with this.
Mm-hmm.
This is different." And I always feel if you're covering a song,
Mm-hmm.
try to cover it, I hope, well, or at least different, but well, because if you do a cover and it's not as good as the original, boy, you can get yourself in trouble. Number one, and number two, it's like, then why even do it?
Yeah, right. No, no,
And
no.
especially the Beatles,
Yeah,
everybody's got that ingrained in their brains, all their songs. So again, another risk, but I think
I
it's well taken.
No, it was well taken. Like I said, I saw the title, and I hadn't heard the album. I just saw titles. And I said, okay, she's gonna take it right. So this might be one of the songs that has more of a ba-boom, ba-beam, ba-bang. And then I went, whoa. And I want to know who did the arrangement. That was before I got the line notes. But Joe really did a great job on that. I appreciate how he approached this and how he was able to bring this. And I guess, if I take anything away from this, is that the triangle, you three had to be in lockstep to say, we're all going to jump off into the deep end of this pool and start swimming. So it's not a thing about, well, it appeared there was no hesitation on the part, especially when we heard that bass in Inolvidable, right? There was no hesitation in saying, I understand what it is that you want to do. Yes, no,
Right.
maybe.
Correct. Absolutely. I mean, even these guys, I mean, when they heard about the project, Renato was pitching them this project, and they both immediately said yes. Immediately. And these guys really didn't know necessarily who I was. And they just thought it was an interesting project. And it was a new approach, something they'd never done before. And they just loved the repertoire. They really loved the repertoire, which surprised me because these are real jazz guys, and I'm like, whoo, how are they going to feel about, playing a show tune or, 50 Ways to Leave Your Lover. I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Or Slovak folks or, a bolero. How are they going to, they dug it. They dug it.
They got right into it. No, it's great stuff, and I appreciate. Like I said, I'm always looking for those who take a chance, because I think that shows that you have a certain sense of I'm grounded, but also a certain sense of saying that there's an audience out there. It may not be a million people, but there's an audience out there for this. There's an audience out there for this, and this is an example of this. So Mary Kent says Triangle on my playlist. David Romero's out there searching already. And we're going to hear a couple more before we close, ladies and gentlemen. This is the one that we've been speaking about. It's titled Ticket to Ride. Of course, you know it by the Beatles. And I'll play it momentarily as soon as this background music goes away. And then we will continue from there. And again, all of you who are watching, don't forget, November 20th.
Yes.
November 20th. Look for that. LubaMason.com. Go to our webpage so that way you can get information, be updated as to all the particulars, so you can be part of the concert and the Q&A that happens afterwards, which I think is a great concept. I like that. Yeah. I like that idea that people will be able to interact with the actor or the performer after. It's a nice little twist. I haven't seen that in the performances I've seen up to now that are using social media to do it. Here we go.
I think I'm gonna be sad. I think it's today. Yeah, the guy that's driving me mad is going away. got a ticket to ride, but he don't care. He said that living with me was bringing him down, yeah, 'cause he could never be free if I was around. He's got a ticket to ride. He's got a ticket to ride. He's got a ticket to ride, but he don't care.
Flawless. So, as I heard the CD, I heard it here in my studio. I've got I guess you call it a couch chair. I was sitting listening to it, and I felt like I was in your living room or you were in here because it felt so intimate, right? So, two thoughts came to mind. One was, what's the difference for you in this kind of environment to sing, a small gathering, compared to when you would be doing the play that you're playing drums, where you have, I don't know how many people go to a theater, but I imagine it's more than a few hundred. It must be at least 800 to 1,000 people in the theater. What happens here as far as you singing?
A big difference. In a theater, you've got at least 1,000 people, if not more, 1,000 to 1,500 people, and you got to make sure the person sitting all the way up in the balcony in the last row can hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, we have mics, we have body mics, but they're only there to just help you and enhance. I mean, that's when your technique and your training really come into play, because you need to have a pretty solid voice and stronger and louder to reach the audience, to get it out there, because you're also playing. You've got 8 shows a week in a Broadway schedule. You've got sometimes 2 shows a day, 6 days a week. You've got 1 day off.
Wow.
Wow.
So
it's demanding, and it can be a really grueling schedule. In a club or a recording booth, I love both approaches, but when you're playing in front of an intimate audience, it's with the microphone, there's just something about it that you just go, you don't have to work as hard, and you get a little bit more help, but it's very intimate, and it's more personal, very much more personal. I mean, I love both. I love performing both ways. I mean, because in a Broadway theater, I do a lot of belting. I mean, I'm really singing some big notes and high notes and giving it all I got. And then in the club, I don't have to do that. I don't have to. I can, but I don't have to. I could sing real small and just give it a whole another twist.
So there's a venue in a place called Rockport, which is north of the city of Boston.
Okay.
Chez Lou, and it holds less than 300 people.
Oh.
It's very modern. Just in the last few years, it came to be.
Chez Lou, you said?
Chez Lou, and it's in Rockport. And I'll text you or email you so you can look it up. But when you're on stage, if you're singing, you're looking at me, and I'm looking at you on stage. Behind you, they open the curtains, and it's a glass wall from ceiling to the floor of the stage, and we see the bay, the harbor of Rockport.
Oh, how beautiful.
Small little town on the coast north of Boston. And Divina and I have been there for different concerts, and we've always said, you know who would do well here? Because it's small enough, right? It's not a theater. It's not Berkeley 1,100, but it's smaller than 300. It's bigger than a nightclub, but it has that mix that you can sort of like um, feel that you're intimate,
Right.
right? But
Right.
it allows you to at least show all your chops. In other words,
Right.
you don't feel inhibited. You don't feel
Right.
inhibited, right? Um, and they would do a Rockport Jazz Festival during the month of August. So, but I'll share this information with you because I've always had this
I would
mind.
love it.
I
Yeah.
said this would be a venue I think that Luba might find to her interest
I
in
love
a
it.
way of really doing something different than going into a nightclub. Not to say that's bad going to a nightclub, but at
No.
least this venue is one. So I'm looking at time. You've given me a lot of your time, and I thank you for that. I,
I thank you for giving me a your
no,
time.
no, 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 because I know you have a lot of different things to do. So the last track you have that not that you have that I wanted to share with folks is Thelonious Monk's Along Comes the Smith Center in Vegas is the same. Somebody tells us there's a place called the Smith Center in Vegas
Oh,
that we should be thinking about as being a small
okay.
venue. But yeah, for sure. Um, so looking at this, in walk Bud. In walk Bud. Ah, look, Kathy, before we talk about that, it would be amazing to see her in performance in
Oh,
Rockport. Kathy and her husband been there because we've been there at the same time. She's been
okay.
there for different concerts, so she knows it very well. It's a great
Great.
venue, great venue. Um, and the town is where it's one of those Luba that you could come up the day before, just enjoy walking around
I
Rockport,
would.
do your gig and stay the next day and then leave. You can
Okay.
spend like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then leave. One of
Right,
those
right.
types of thing. But anyway, we'll follow up on that. In walk Bud. So let's talk about that one and then we wrap it up. Go
Okay.
for it.
Yeah. You want me to say something about it?
Yes, please.
Well, again, I wanted a real classic, straight ahead jazz tune, and my manager actually turned me on to this song. John Hendricks did the lyrics,
Mhm.
and I was also playing around with scatting and such, and I wanted something upbeat and fun, and and I heard this song and I went, bingo, this is it. This is definitely the one to just have fun and play around with it a bit.
There
And the
you go.
guys have a great time with it too.
Well, I love the fact that you were able to include this one in it.
Yeah.
So the last comments here, any questions or comments that you may have of Luba, share them now because I want to close momentarily. Arturo, what's this here? David Romero, our friend in Vegas, says Arturo, Poncho, Pete, just a few of the acts that perform at the Smith Center in Las Vegas. All right, that's good to
Uh,
know. And that's another venue, because I'm thinking, um, not that you've done it all because you haven't. Obviously, there's a lot of things you still aspire
oh
to
yeah.
do and experiences you haven't had as of yet. But if there are some opportunities to do things that are very unique, those are the kinds of things that I posit for your consideration. And I think that one in Rockport is an example of something very unique because where it is, what it looks like, how it sounds, great acoustics, and just a lovely place. So I'm gonna work on that. I'm gonna work on that. Let's see how
Excellent.
we
Oh, thank you.
yeah
That would be great.
let's see how we make something good happen out of
Yeah.
that. Um, and then we will part with the music. And again, I thank you so much, Luba.
Oh, Jose, thank you so much.
You're the
And
best.
send my love to Davina from me. And this has been such a pleasure, a real pleasure. You're,
Thank
you're
you.
so you're such a great interviewer, and you do your research. You're just so thorough. It's
Uh,
really beautiful to talk with you. Really
no,
is.
thank you. And again, like I've been saying, you and Ruben and all of you who are in the arts, I cannot thank you enough
Mm,
because I will tell you, you know, COVID-19 was disruptive.
still is.
The
Yeah.
death of George Floyd was very disruptive.
Oh,
Um, and then you add to it, the fall of the economy for so many of our friends who have lost jobs and are not working at this moment. The threat from many others that they may lose their jobs at this moment because
right.
of the financial stress of their particular employers. And then you have, a electoral season that has gone off the rails. So you have all those things combined, and I keep saying, thank God we have art. Thank God we have music. Thank God we have, whatever it might be that just gives us a sense of calmness. It's sort of like what gives
I'm
us
right with
that
you.
moment. It gives us
I'm
that
right with
moment,
you.
And
We,
so,
yeah, the world cannot be without art. It
yeah,
just cannot survive without it.
yeah. And there's one thing I've said to many of my guests is that, I have a little, not a lot of influence, but I have some agency to be able to talk to people who are in the public sector. And I've said to them, you know, one of the things we have to re-examine is what our values are when it comes to how do we use our largesse for the good of society, right? Because yes, you want education, yes, you want health, yes, you want housing, I said, but you've got to raise the awareness and put it higher as far as a priority, the work and the world of arts and culture. We
Hmm.
can't dismiss it as being an afterthought or being only for those who can afford it.
Right.
It's got to be front and center. The values have to be, in my opinion, that those who are in policy making decisions, they say, okay, this is the way we're going to allocate resources, and let's make sure that the arts get funding at at the highest level, not just minimal level, but
Oh,
equal level to all the other things.
absolutely.
Because
Absolutely.
similar to you, starting at a very young age, I've got grandchildren who, the arts are very much part of their being.
Yeah.
Playing piano, singing, acting, and you see how it becomes. They live. Hamilton is an example, right? My two
Oh,
granddaughters, before they saw Hamilton, I think it was 2 years before they saw Hamilton. But Luba, as you have experienced in your life, they knew every single word to
yes,
Hamilton from the beginning to end. From
absolutely.
beginning to end. And while they were watching Hamilton, they were doing it. They're
Yeah.
watching the real thing on stage, and I'm sitting there going, okay. But that's the impact of art, right?
Yeah.
That is what it means to so many of us, and in particular to children. And so I am on this crusade as I speak to some of the folks running for office here locally or some who are already in position locally to say, we've got to raise where we are as far as the public sector and use the public sector to leverage the private sector so that they're
Oh, that's a
partnerships,
great. Yeah.
so that they're partnerships, right? That they're partnerships, so that it means, therefore, instead of us thinking in the box, Luba Mason can only perform at a club or on stage at Broadway, it should be Luba Mason should be part of whatever's happening at this bank, at this insurance company, at this other business, as far as being part of the quality of life for their employees, right? So that every Friday there's a concert, every Wednesday there's a poetry reading, every quarter there's a new painting and maybe real time painting taking
Right.
place by the artist or whatever. So that way the private sector takes
More
ownership,
control. Yeah.
right? And becomes part of that ecosystem that I speak of. So I'm hoping, as we go through this and we start forging what the new reality might be, that we embrace and applaud and recognize the world of the artists and the specific role that you play in our lives, and that we do it with respect, but also doing it in a way that basically is up here. It's not just an afterthought. But anyway, that's just me on my soapbox.
From your mouth to God's ears.
Thank you, Luba. You be
Thank
well.
you very much.
And no, and thank you. Our regards. Divina's upstairs. She said hello to you. And
Thank you.
please give our love to Ruben as well. Okay.
I sure will.
All
Thank
right.
you again.
Thank you. Love you and God bless. Ache.
Love you
Be
back.
well.
Bye-bye.
All right. In walk Bud. There he is.
Ah.
Love it.
Dizzy, he was screaming next to Opie, who was beaming. Monk was slumping suddenly in walked Bud, and then they got into something. A bias blew a mean sax. Mr. Max Roach beat a mean axe. Monk was slumping suddenly in walked Bud, and then the joint started jumping. Every hip stud really dug Bud soon as he hit town. Taking that note nobody wrote, putting it down. Opie played a mean string, next to Dizzy playing a hip thing. Monk was thumping, suddenly in walked Bud, and then the joint started jumping.
All right. Luba Mason, thank you, my friend. Be
Thank
well.
you.
God bless. Take care. Cuídate. Ciao. All right, ladies and gentlemen, That was our guest, Luba Mason, for this afternoon. I hope you enjoyed that. That was my pleasure to have her with us this afternoon, the time that she spent with us. And I want to thank Ana Carrion, David. I'm with you this Tuesday. I'll talk more about the elections tomorrow during the show. And Ceci and Johnny, California, good to see you both. Happy Halloween. I love your mask, and what you look like is looking great. So have a safe evening, a safe night, wherever you might be. I want to thank each and every one of you for being part of the program today, inviting you to be with us tomorrow from 4 to 6 as we have another 2 guests. They will be, and I will remind you, I have, there we go. And Dance With Me is the title of the album by Carol Welsman. And she will be joined by Oscar Hernandez, who's the producer of the album, our dear friend. So we'll have a conversation with her and hear some more music tomorrow, Sunday, from 4 to 6. Happy Halloween to you as well. We will see you mañana, God willing. So be safe. Remember, use your mask. Wash your hands, 6 feet distance. And if you have not voted, make sure you vote on Tuesday at the end of the voting season. Okay? We got to do the right thing. Let's do the right thing. And as I conclude, a very special shout out, our prayers and blessings to one of our idols, Felipe Luciano, who today announced that he had quadruple surgery. He's recovering. He's been out for about a month now after his operation, but he spoke this afternoon along with his son on the radio show Latin Roots to let us know that he is recovering and doing well. So to Felipe Sr., our love to you, blessings, and mucho H. Familia Latino, defienda lo tuyo con orgullo, todos unidos entre amigos, uno para todos y todos para uno. El nombre mío es José Mazó. Hasta mañana a las 4, cuando regresamos, otra edición más de Con Salsa en Vivo. And yes, David, Sean Connery, may he rest in peace. My first date with my first girlfriend was a 007 movie in Santurce, Puerto Rico, which I will never forget. Sean Connery, my favorite. Take care, everybody. Be well. God bless. Until next time, okay? Mañana.